I died with the taste of blood in my mouth and the smell of burning temples in my nostrils. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm a 34-year-old software engineer living in Los Angeles. But that's only half of who I am. The other half lived and died over 500 years ago in a civilization that no longer exists. I know this sounds insane. Trust me, I thought I was losing my mind too. But what I'm about to tell you changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the nature of consciousness itself. Let me take you back to where this all started. I was 7 years old when the nightmares began. Not the childhood kind where monsters chase you through dark hallways. These were different, visceral, real. I would wake up screaming about pyramids made of stone, about rituals I couldn't possibly understand, about a burning city falling into ruins. My parents took me to therapists, pediatricians, even a sleep specialist. Nothing helped. The dreams persisted, night after night, year after year. But it wasn't just dreams. There were other things. Strange things. I had an inexplicable fascination with pre-Columbian history. When other kids wanted dinosaur books, I begged for books about the Aztecs, the Maya, the Olmecs. I taught myself Nahuatl, the Aztec language, from online resources when I was 14. My Spanish teacher thought I was gifted. My parents thought I was obsessed. The truth? I was remembering. I didn't realize this until much later. For years, I pushed it all down. I went to college, got my degree in computer science, landed a good job in Silicon Valley. I tried to be normal. I dated, I went to parties, I pretended the dreams weren't getting worse. But they were. By my early 30s, I was barely sleeping. The visions had become so intense that I would sometimes lose entire minutes during the day, standing frozen as memories that weren't mine flooded my consciousness. That's when my girlfriend, Sarah, suggested I try something radical, past life regression therapy. I laughed when she first mentioned it. Me? A skeptical engineer who believed in code and logic and things that could be proven. But I was desperate. So on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March, I found myself lying on a comfortable couch in a small office in Santa Monica, while a soft-spoken woman named Drive. Patricia Reeves guided me into a hypnotic state. What happened next changed my life forever. As I sank deeper into the trance, Dr. Reeves asked me to go back. Back before this life. Back to the source of my dreams. And suddenly, I wasn't Marcus anymore. I was Tlaloc. The memory hit me like a physical force. I gasped, and Dr. Reeves later told me I had tears streaming down my face. But in that moment, I was no longer in Santa Monica. I was in Tenochtitlan, the great city of the Aztecs, in the year 1519. I remember being 7 years old, the same age I was when the dreams started in this life. That's when the priests came to my family's home. I was the youngest of 4 children. My father was a Pachteca, a traveling merchant who brought precious goods from distant lands. My mother wove beautiful feather mantles that were prized by nobles. But I was different from my siblings. I had been born during a sacred eclipse, under the sign of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. The priests said I bore the marks of divine favor. My eyes were lighter than most, my features slightly different. Some whispered that I carried the blood of the Toltecs, the ancient ones who came before. The head priest, Xochitl, stood in our doorway that day, his face painted black and red, his cloak adorned with obsidian mirrors. "Your son has been chosen," he said. "He will serve the gods at the Templo Mayor. He will learn the sacred calendar, the movements of the heavens, the rituals that keep the sun rising and the world in balance." My mother wept. Not from sadness, but from pride. To have a son chosen for the priesthood was the greatest honor a family could receive. I remember her kissing my forehead and whispering, "You will do great things, my little Quetzal." I was taken that very day. The temple complex was enormous, a city within a city. The Great Pyramid towered above everything, its twin temples dedicated to Tlaloc, the rain god, and Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun. I would learn later that I was named after the rain god, another sign of destiny, they said. The training was brutal. We woke before dawn every day to bathe in the sacred springs, the cold water shocking our bodies awake. We learned to read the stars, to understand the complex calendar systems, the 260-day sacred calendar and the 365-day solar calendar. We memorized prayers in the ancient tongue, studied the codices that contained our people's history and knowledge. But most importantly, we learned about sacrifice. This is the part that troubles me most to remember. In this life, as Marcus, I find the concept of human sacrifice barbaric and horrifying. But as Tlaloc, I believed, truly believed, that it was necessary. We were taught that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, to make the sun move across the sky. The least we could do was repay that debt with the most precious offering we had, human life. I remember my first sacrifice. I was 14 years old. A warrior had been captured in battle, and he had been chosen for the ritual. He was honored, treated as a living god for days before the ceremony. He seemed almost eager when the day came. I assisted the high priests, holding the sacred obsidian knife, my hands trembling. When it was over, when his blood ran down the temple steps, I felt sick. But the high priest placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "You feel the weight of what we do. Good. The gods demand our devotion, but they also demand our understanding. Never forget the sacred responsibility we carry." Years passed. I rose in rank, becoming one of the youngest full priests at age 22. I was given quarters near the top of the pyramid, rooms filled with codices and astronomical instruments. I spent my nights charting the stars, predicting eclipses, ensuring our ceremonies aligned with the cosmic order. I loved the intellectual aspects of the priesthood. I loved the mathematics, the astronomy, the philosophy. We debated the nature of the gods, the meaning of existence, the relationship between the divine and the human. Our religious system was far more complex and nuanced than most people today understand. But I struggled with the sacrifices. As I grew older, I began to have doubts. Quiet doubts, doubts I shared with no one. The gods needed blood to survive. This was what we were taught. But why? Why would beings of such power need our blood? Why would they create us only to demand our destruction? These were dangerous thoughts, heretical thoughts. I pushed them down and performed my duties. Then, in the year 1519, everything changed. Rumors reached the city of strange men coming from the east. Men with pale skin, who rode on the backs of enormous deer-like creatures, who wielded weapons that made thunder and fire. The Emperor Moctezuma was troubled. Some said these strangers were gods. Others said they were demons. But that wasn't what changed my life. What changed my life was a young woman named Xochitl. Her name meant flower, and she was beautiful in a way that made my breath catch. She had been captured in a skirmish with the Tlaxcalans, our longtime enemies. She was 19 years old, the daughter of a Tlaxcalan noble. She was brought to the temple, and by custom, she would be honored as a bride of the gods for 20 days before her sacrifice. I was assigned to oversee her preparation. It was a routine task, ensuring she was fed, clothed in fine garments, taught the prayers she would recite at her death. I had done this dozens of times before. But Xochitl was different. She wasn't afraid. On the third day, as I brought her sacred chocolate to drink, she looked at me with eyes that seemed to see straight through me. "You don't believe," she said in accented Nahuatl. "I can see it in your face. You go through the motions, but your heart questions." I was shocked. "You speak blasphemy," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Do I?" She smiled sadly. "Or do I simply say what you've been thinking for years? Tell me, priest, do you think the gods truly need my blood? Or is this a system created by men to control other men?" I should have walked away. I should have reported her heretical words to the high priests. But instead, I sat down. And we talked. We talked for hours that day. And the next day. And the day after that. She told me about her life in Tlaxcala, about her dreams of becoming a healer, about her younger brother who made her laugh. I told her about my doubts, my questions, the weight I carried every time I assisted in a sacrifice. "You're a good man trapped in a terrible system," she said on the 10th day. "I don't hate you for what you're going to do. But I want you to promise me something. Promise me that after I'm gone, you'll think about whether this is really what the gods want. Promise me you'll question." I promised. But something had shifted inside me. I couldn't imagine a world without her voice, her laugh, the way she challenged everything I'd been taught to believe. On the 15th day, I realized I was in love with her. It was forbidden. Utterly, completely forbidden. Priests took vows of celibacy. The woman was sacred, promised to the gods. To desire her, to love her, was to commit the gravest sin imaginable. But I couldn't stop myself. And I think she felt the same way. I saw it in how she looked at me, how her hand would linger when our fingers accidentally touched. We never spoke of it directly. We didn't dare, but the feeling hung between us like smoke from the temple fires. 5 days before her scheduled sacrifice, I made a decision that would damn me forever. I was going to help her escape. The plan was simple but incredibly risky. There was a network of canals that ran throughout the city. At midnight, when the temple was quiet, I would take her to a small dock where a canoe would be waiting. A merchant I had befriended, who owed me a favor for predicting the best days for his trading expeditions, had agreed to hide her in his canoe and smuggle her out of the city. From there, she would have to make her own way back to Tlaxcala. The night came. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would wake the entire temple. I went to her chamber, where she was sleeping under guard. I had brought drugged pulque for the guard. He drank it gratefully, not knowing what it contained. Within minutes, he was unconscious. Xochitl was awake, waiting. "You came," she whispered. "I couldn't let them kill you," I said. I couldn't. We moved through the temple like shadows. Every sound made me freeze. Every corner might hide another priest or guard. But luck, or perhaps the gods I no longer fully believed in, was with us. We made it to the canal. The merchant was there with his canoe. Xochitl turned to me, tears in her eyes. "Come with me," she said. "Leave this place. We can start over together." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I shook my head. If I disappear, they'll know someone helped you. They'll search. They'll find you. But if I stay, if I'm here to discover your escape in the morning, I can misdirect them. Give you time to get away. They'll know it was you, she said. They'll kill you. Probably, I admitted. But you'll be alive. That's what matters. She grabbed my face and kissed me. It was the first and only time our lips met. It tasted like salt and tears and goodbye. "I'll never forget you, Tlaloc," she whispered. "In this life or any other, I'll never forget you." Then she was gone, the canoe disappearing into the darkness. I returned to the temple. I didn't sleep. I sat in my chamber and waited for dawn, for discovery, for the consequences of what I had done. When they found her chamber empty in the morning, chaos erupted. The high priest Xochitl was furious. A sacrifice had been stolen from the gods. Someone would pay. They questioned everyone. The guard swore he had fallen asleep naturally. I had calculated the drug's effects to make it seem like simple exhaustion. They searched the entire temple complex. They sent warriors throughout the city. I played my part perfectly. I acted shocked, horrified, confused. I suggested she must have had help from the outside, from Tlaxcalan spies who infiltrated the city. They believed me. For 3 days, they believed me. Then they captured the merchant. He was tortured. He gave me up within hours. I don't blame him. No one could withstand what they did to him. They came for me at midnight, just as I had come for Xochitl. But there was no escape for me. They dragged me before the high priests. Xochitl looked at me with such disappointment that it hurt more than the ropes cutting into my wrists. "Why, Tlaloc?" he asked. "Why would you betray everything we are? Everything we believe?" "Because I don't think the gods need blood," I said. My voice was steady. "I think they need love, compassion, kindness. If we truly serve divine beings, shouldn't we reflect divine qualities ourselves?" "You have been corrupted by the woman," Xochitl said. "You have forsaken your vows, your duty, your people." "No," I said. "I finally understood what it means to be human. They sentenced me to death, of course. But not the honorable death of sacrifice. I was to be imprisoned until they decided my ultimate fate. A traitor priest was unprecedented. They needed time to determine the proper ritual. I was placed in a small cell beneath the temple. Days passed. I was given minimal food and water. But I didn't despair, because I knew Xochitl had escaped. I had given her that. And somehow, that made everything worthwhile. Then the Spanish arrived. I heard the commotion from my cell, shouting, the thunder of their weapons, the screams of the dying. Hernán Cortés and his conquistadors had entered Tenochtitlan. Emperor Moctezuma tried to greet them peacefully, believing they might be gods or emissaries of Quetzalcoatl. He was wrong. They were men. Greedy, brutal men who saw our gold and wanted it for themselves. The initial encounter was tense but not violent. The Spanish were housed in the palace. Moctezuma gave them gifts, massive amounts of gold and precious stones. But instead of satisfying them, it only increased their hunger. Weeks turned into months. The situation deteriorated. The Spanish took Moctezuma hostage. They demanded more gold, more tribute. They destroyed our temples, placing crosses on top of our pyramids. They called our religion evil, our gods demons. I was still imprisoned through all of this. The priests had forgotten about me in the chaos. Or perhaps they thought leaving me to starve was punishment enough. But then came the massacre at the Templo Mayor. During a religious festival, while our people danced and celebrated, the Spanish soldiers, led by Pedro de Alvarado while Cortés was away, attacked. They blocked the exits and slaughtered everyone inside. Thousands died. The Spanish later claimed they thought we were preparing for war. The truth? They wanted to seize control through terror. This was the breaking point. The entire city rose up in rage. La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows, as the Spanish would later call it. We drove them out of Tenochtitlan, killing many of them as they tried to flee across the causeways. But we knew they would return. And they did, months later, with more men, more weapons, and a devastating ally: smallpox. The disease swept through our city like fire through dry grass. People died by the thousands. Entire families wiped out in days. The streets filled with corpses. Our healers were helpless against this invisible enemy. During this chaos, someone finally remembered me. A young priest, barely more than a boy, opened my cell. Everyone is needed to defend the city, he said. Even traitors. I emerged into a nightmare. The beautiful city I had known was dying. The canals ran red with blood and disease. The great pyramids were pockmarked from Spanish cannons. Bodies lay everywhere, rotting in the heat. I helped where I could. I carried water to the fighters. I tended to the sick, even knowing the disease could kill me too. I had already betrayed my priesthood. I might as well serve humanity in more direct ways. The final battle came in August 1521. The Spanish had surrounded the city. We were starving, diseased, exhausted. But we fought. We fought with everything we had. I found myself on the pyramid steps, defending the temple of Huitzilopochtli alongside warriors and common people alike. The Spanish soldiers came in waves, their steel swords cutting through our wooden weapons, their armor deflecting our obsidian blades. I held a spear, something I had never been trained to use. A Spanish soldier came at me, shouting in his foreign tongue. I thrust the spear forward. It caught him in the shoulder, and he screamed. But then his companion was on me, his sword cutting across my chest. I fell backward, blood pouring from the wound. I couldn't breathe. The pain was everywhere. As I lay dying on the temple steps, the same steps where I had once performed sacrifices, I looked up at the sky. Smoke from 1,000 fires obscured the stars I had studied my entire life. My city, my civilization, my entire world was ending. But in that moment, I didn't think about the gods. I didn't think about the empire falling. I thought about Xochitl. I wondered if she had made it to safety. I wondered if she had found happiness. I wondered if somewhere out there, she was thinking of me too. My last thought before the darkness took me was this: maybe love is the only God that matters. Maybe everything else, the rituals, the sacrifices, the temples and priests and empires, maybe all of that is just noise. Maybe the only truly sacred thing is the way one soul recognizes another across the chaos of existence. Then I died. When I woke up from the regression, I was sobbing. Dr. Reeves handed me tissues and gave me time to collect myself. That was intense, she said quietly. How do you feel? How did I feel? I felt like I had lived an entire lifetime in an hour. I felt grief for a lost world, for lost love, for a civilization that no longer existed. But I also felt something else. Understanding. All those dreams, all those inexplicable feelings, they finally made sense. I wasn't crazy. I was remembering. The story doesn't end there, though. 3 months after my regression, something incredible happened. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when a woman sat down at the table next to mine. She was reading a book about pre-Columbian art. I wouldn't normally approach a stranger, but something compelled me to speak. "Interesting book," I said. She looked up, and our eyes met. I know how this sounds. I know it seems like a fantasy or a coincidence too perfect to be real. But in that moment, looking into her eyes, I knew. I recognized her. Not her face, that was different. But something deeper, something that transcended physical appearance. "I'm Marcus," I said. "Natalie," she replied. Her hand was shaking as she extended it to shake mine. "This is going to sound insane, but do I know you from somewhere?" "Yes," I said, "from a long time ago. We talked for 6 hours that day." When I finally, nervously, told her about my past life regression, about Tlaloc and Xochitl, she went pale. "I've had dreams," she whispered. "My whole life. Dreams about pyramids and a priest with kind eyes and running away in a canoe. I always thought they were just dreams." Natalie went to see Dr. Reeves for her own regression a week later. What she remembered matched my memories almost exactly. She was Xochitl. She had made it back to Tlaxcala. She had lived a long life, married, had children. But she never forgot the priest who saved her. "We've been together for 2 years now. We're engaged. Our friends think we have a weirdly intense connection. Our families think we're perfect for each other. Neither of us has told many people about the past life aspect. Most people wouldn't understand, but we know. We found each other again. Across 500 years, across death and rebirth, across the destruction of an entire civilization, we found each other. I still have the dreams sometimes. But they're not nightmares anymore. They're memories. Bittersweet, painful, but ultimately beautiful memories of a life lived with conviction, even if that conviction cost me everything. I've learned something from all of this. Life is longer and stranger than we can possibly imagine. We are more than these individual lifetimes. We are accumulations of experiences, lessons learned across centuries. And love, real love, soul-deep love, is the only thing powerful enough to transcend death itself. The Aztec Empire fell. The temples were destroyed. The gods, if they ever existed, no longer demand blood. But love? Love persists. Love remembers. Love finds a way. If you're watching this and you've had similar experiences, dreams that feel too real, memories that aren't yours, connections with people that defy logical explanation, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not crazy. Maybe you're just remembering. And if you've lost someone in this life, if you're grieving someone you loved, take comfort in this. Death is not the end. It's just a pause. Just a transition. The soul continues. Love continues. And somewhere, somehow, we find each other again. I died as Tlaloc on temple steps in a burning city. But I lived again as Marcus. And I found Xochitl again, wearing the name Natalie this time. What are the odds? What force in the universe is powerful enough to bring two souls together across such vast distances of time? I don't have all the answers. I don't know the mechanics of reincarnation or how memories transfer between lives. I don't know if everyone reincarnates or just some of us. I don't know if we always find the people we loved before. But I know this. I was an Aztec priest named Tlaloc. I fell in love with a woman condemned to die. I saved her at the cost of everything I had. I died watching my entire world burn. And somehow, impossibly, wonderfully, I found her again. If that's not proof that love is eternal, I don't know what is. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonates with you, if you have your own experiences with past lives or inexplicable memories, please share them in the comments. We're all in this together, navigating the mystery of existence. And remember, you are more than this moment, more than this life. You are eternal, you are loved, and you will love again. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Hit the notification bell, and most importantly, keep an open mind. The universe is far stranger and more beautiful than we've been taught to believe. My name is Marcus Chen. But once, a long time ago, in a city of stone and smoke and sacred fire, my name was Tlaloc. And I loved a woman named Xochitl. That love brought me back. That love found her again. That love gave this story a happy ending, even though the original ending was written in blood 500 years ago. Thank you, and may you find what you're looking for, in this life or the next.